Hello and welcome to the Sands of Time review channel. Today I'm doing a initial impressions slash review of a new acquisition of mine, and I have two watches here with me to kind of aid in a comparison. The first being the Doxa Sub 300T, the second being the Seiko Turtle. And you can kind of tell just based off these two watches that the watch I have is going to be another cushion case style of watch, and it is the Seiko SPB237, the Captain Willard. I think this is a phenomenal wristwatch, and it is easily becoming one of my most favorite sport watches in the collection. I really love how this watch wears. It just feels like a much more premium version of the Seiko Turtle. It really is a beautiful watch. It's pretty. I really only have praise for this watch, so if you want to stop watching this review, you can, because I'm not going to say much bad things about this watch that have not already been said about Seikos in general. But if you do want to continue watching this video, I'm going to talk about why I purchased this watch, what I like about it, and what's special about this kind of edition of the watch. So just to get some of the basics out of the way, it comes in this nice kind of box. So a much more premium Prospex box compared to the sub 1,000 Australian dollar Seiko Prospex watches. I think the Marine Master 300 comes in this same kind of box as well. Great to know. And this is kind of my first... Actually, I've owned a very high-end Prospex diver, and it pretty much came in a shoebox. It is the 62 MAS. And I'm going to be honest, that is a phenomenal wristwatch as well. And I really needed another Prospex watch that can kind of scratch that itch. So I went with the Seiko SPB237. Basics out of the way. Comes in this really nice box. Paperwork out of the way. You get these fabric straps. They're Seiko straps. That's how Seiko kind of terms them. It's kind of the braiding technique used to manufacture. So nylon material, I believe, but woven with extremely high quality. And I'll get to further detail on that later, but the entire package of this watch is the box, obviously your warranty and everything. You get your two Seiko straps, and it's fitted with this green one, and I think this is the one to go for if you're looking for that vintage look. So if you haven't already guessed, that this watch actually is meant to be a vintage kind of inspired release. To get the basics out of the way, this watch firstly just wears extremely well on the wrist. I mean, it's a phenomenal wristwatch. And in terms of the specs here, we have the mechanical 6R35 caliber, and this is kind of what we're seeing in watches between 1,000 to 3,000 Australian dollars. So we're seeing the use of the 6R35 movement, which features the workhorse 70 hours of power reserve, which is just great. Has a precision rate of plus 25 to minus 15 seconds per day. What I've observed with this watch in the past 2 weeks of ownership is that this watch kind of runs at minus 2 to minus 1 seconds a day. It's literally running at an extremely good precision compared to, let's say, my own experience with 6R35 caliber. I did have a watch that was running out of the specifications. I took it to Seiko. They spent 1 hour with the watch to regulate it, and look, it came out well, but that's just an extra added tension. So that's where one of the negatives come, is a little bit of a tighter tolerance of accuracy would be good, but to me personally, I'm not a huge accuracy fanatic, and I don't really care, to be honest, so long as it's within the actual quoted specification for the watch. Features date display, and obviously with the new ISO rating, we obviously notice that there will be an inclusion of a 3 o'clock loomed pip, and that's kind of what we've been seeing over time with all these new Seiko releases to maintain to maintain its the requirements for the ISO standard. Now, thickness of the watch is 13.2 mils in thickness. The diameter is 42.7 mils, and the lug to lug distance between top to bottom, it's actually 46.6 mils. So very compact wearing watch compared to, let's say, the Seiko Turtle, which feels a bit larger, you know. Now, why did I purchase this watch? I was looking for a higher end or just the military reissue of a watch, and Seiko, famously known for reissuing their 6105 divers, 6159 divers, I had to pick up the Willard. At some point in time, I was overdue to pick up the Willard. I was also looking at other brands, let's say Hanhart for the 417 ES chronograph in 39 mils. That was the main contender to this. Obviously, a completely different ball game in watch. That one's a chronograph. This one is a dive watch. That's the differences there. What I like about this watch is how thoughtful it is. What I mean by that is, if you look at the dial, you have this nice kind of birchy, or it looks like it's a bark material. It's come from a tree. Very subtle texture though. This isn't, you won't always notice this. It's just in very specific lighting, and also just wrist maneuvers. Obviously in different conditions you're going to notice that, but usually it appears like a dark kind of grey, a very dark grey kind of dial, and I kind of like that, especially paired with the super clear coating which they have. You really get great visibility on the dial, and it just screams quality. I mean, this watch just screams quality to me. And I already thought the Turtle was pretty damn good, but this thing is a huge step up in quality compared to the Seiko Turtle, I'll have to admit. What I also like about this watch is the faux lume, the depth of the lume. So if you actually look at the indices, there's quite a bit of depth to it. Nice vintage creamy lume, not overdone. Let's say, I think with the Railmaster, for example, from Amiga, and certain reissues, they kind of overdo the lume color, but this here it's not overdone. It's overdone. It's very charming and pleasant to look at. I really like the depth to the indices, especially because they're applied applique, and I like how the dial is just, it's beautiful. It's the way the text is laid out. You have Seiko, you've got the Prospex Loto automatic divers 200 meters. Beautiful, exactly what I needed. The next thing I love about this watch is the crystal. You'll notice that this crystal is a single domed sapphire crystal, but it has a radial chamfer. And that chamfer kind of gives it a very nice, let's say, personality to the watch, because what ends up happening is the chamfer is actually reflecting out the external chapter ring. So you have those markers and it's reflecting out. And that is just such great attention to detail. You have to admit, that is great, because with inside the watch, yep, you have the metallic ring, but guess what? What the crystal does is it kind of, refracts the light of the chapter ring out to us, and it just gives that extra layer of depth, which is something I appreciate. And the second thing I love about this watch is that seconds hand. I mean, that is beautiful. The stoplight seconds hand, that single touch of red, I'll be honest, that single touch of red kind of, makes this watch, let's say, less boring. It's already a very interesting watch, but Seiko have gone to the next level. Adding that extra pop of red is just, phenomenal. It keeps the interest there when you're looking at the watch, and that's something I appreciate. The handset, I mean, this is probably going to have to be my favorite handset from the Prospex lineup, I'll have to say. What I like about it is that how long that minute hand is. It's literally just touching the minute track. It is literally just touching the minute track, and that's great. Seconds hand is touching the track. That's what I like. At times I don't like watches that have very short seconds hands, and that's something I kind of dislike. And you can look at the handset and notice that there is in fact you know, it is half brushed, half polished, which it just exudes quality. I mean, it's great. As I said at the start, I really don't have much bad things to say about this watch. And you look at the bezel of the watch, aluminium, and you have that kind of faux patina inlay for the numerals, and it's not overdone. In a lot of cases, it's just off-white. It's not trying to be a actual vintage watch. It's not trying to copy that. It's not trying to be those Longines heritage watches where they're trying to put speckles of dust or specks on the dial, etc. It's not trying to do that. It's a modern reissue. It is a modern recreation, of a vintage watch, and that's what I appreciate. It has the modern specs. You have the boosted power reserve with the mechanical movement. You have, you know, you've got your nice screw down crown. You have super hard coating on the watch. So die shield coating, I believe they're just calling it super hard coating. Essentially, I think it's around 600 Vickers, 600 to 800 or 600 to 1000 Vickers in hardness. Great. I mean, it's not going to scratch as easily. Has a kind of darker, kind of metallic, let's say a titanium look compared to, let's say, the Seiko Turtle. So the Seiko Turtle itself has, you can kind of tell that the steel is a little bit brighter. I have my Doxa Sub 300T for comparison, and yeah, the steel does, it's very subtle. You're not really going to spot it in this video, but you can tell that steel is very slightly darker, and I really like that from the watch. So there's already so much to it, and obviously the Captain Willard, the heritage. Do I even need to go through the heritage? You know, it's featured in the movie Apocalypse Now, a three-hour-long movie which I watched with some of my friends just because of this watch, and I didn't own it back then. I just wanted to know what was the craze of this movie. And the actual Captain Willard, I mean, back in the day during the Vietnam War period, the soldiers would actually prefer to purchase. They were lining up for the Captain Willard over the Rolex Sub because they thought the Willard was a much affordable and a much reliable and robust watch for them. So they picked the Willard, you know, and from Apocalypse Now, we have that nickname, the Captain Willard, right? It's just such a great watch, known in particular for this kind of lock design here. You have that extended lug or extended case design compared to the actual Turtle, and that's where the differences lie between the two. And you can tell that the Willard is a much more high quality watch because you have that AR coating, you have applied indices. I mean, this is applied as well, but very subtle, not noticeable. But you're getting the die shield coating, you're getting the much more refined design, the smaller lug to lug. Just such a great watch the Willard is, with these Seiko style straps. Japanese, getting a bit of that Japanese heritage into the watch itself. And look, these straps itself comply to the ISO standard as well. So it's not like you're buying a watch with, you know, a leather strap on, or it doesn't make sense. No, you know, you have the wave actually etched onto this strap, which is just great. We always like to say that this is the Great Wave of Kanagawa, but I'm not sure if it's meant to be that. But yeah, it's just such a great package. The price itself, this watch retails at 2,050 Australian dollars. At that price, I still think it's worth it. The saying is you don't pay retail for Seiko. That's true, you don't. I got a pretty good discount. I have a good connection with my authorized dealer. Picked it up for 1,300 Australian dollars. I'm happy. Happy days for me. And I just love the watch. The bezel action is great. Compared to the Turtle, the bezel action is phenomenal. Bezel, let's say it lines up. The bezel actually lines up. Sorry. Hard to do it in the video. But even if your bezel doesn't line up, there's always that little bit of play that you get with a Seiko. that allows you to line up the watch bezel, and that was my experience with a 7,000 Australian dollar retail 62 MAS, the SLA 043. That wasn't a deal breaker for me. Just gonna live with it. With that bezel misalignment at times, because the Japanese aren't focusing on that. So that's fine. Compared to the Seiko Turtle, the bezel action is mushy. You're putting much more force into it. You have a bit of play as well. Standard Seiko affair, but the actual Captain Willard bezel is just easy to use. You're not putting that much force into it, and sounds great. It really is a phenomenal bezel. I has easily become one of my favorite bezel actions after, let's say, the ceramic ball bearing ones that they use. The Doxa Sub 300T is much more precise in bezel. It is not misaligned. It is perfectly aligned. It is yeah. Let's have a listen. Very precise ticks. Absolutely no play. No play. Precise. Lines up perfectly. That's what you get with a Swiss diver. But there are going to be Swiss watches out there, Swiss dive watches that have misaligned bezels as well. You're not escaping it. You can become lucky any day. You pick up a watch. It's just, for me, I don't pay much attention to it. There are Rolex Submariners that have a misaligned bezel. For me, it's not a big deal. A misaligned bezel, unless it's extremely far off, and even with that little bit of play, you can't align it. That's when I'd return it to the manufacturer under warranty. No signed crown on the watch. That's kind of the standard affair with Seiko Prospex watches, unless you're spending, let's say, more than 5,000 Australian dollars. That is kind of the standard affair there. But that's really what I had to say for this watch, is that it's just such a great reissue of watch. My second favorite version of this Captain Willard with the 6R35 movement is the green one. I really love the green one out there, and this is my favorite, just because of that, amazing depth to the dial. The quality of the dial is great, and I'd say, in terms of, I paid $1,300. I think this watch is, let's say, competes with watches, let's say the Oris Aquis as an example. Watches at the sub 4,000 Australian dollar mark, or $5,000, actually sub 5,000 Australian dollar mark. In terms of the quality, that's what it's rivaling. Under the macro, really, I actually spotted absolutely no flaw. There is not even a speck of dust within the dial of the watch. Great. It's great to see. So what I'll do is I'll actually part ways with a video showcasing the blue Lume. That's the second reason I kind of purchased this watch, is that blue Lume is beautiful compared to, let's say, the green Lume. The blue Lume is great. Compared to the Turtle, I will say that the Lume, because the surface area on the indices on the Seiko Turtle are much more pronounced, the green Lume on the Turtle feels brighter than the blue Lume. But nonetheless, this is Seiko Lume Bright. This is extremely bright. And compared to the Doxa unfortunately doesn't even, show a candle. It's not even, it doesn't compete in Lume, unfortunately. The Lume is subpar on the Doxa, and that's something, it's already competing with the 3,000 Australian dollar Doxa Sub 300T. The Lume is just better on here. But the rest of the quality of the Doxa is phenomenal. The heritage, the design, I love it. This is 1,300 meters water resistance, of course, and then the 200, really only need 200 for the watch. But yeah, this is kind of my thoughts and initial impressions of the Seiko SPB237 Captain Willard. I think this is going to be a keeper. in the collection. I don't think I will be selling this. This is going to be a Prospex watch I'm going to keep. The only other Prospex watch in the collection is my very first mechanical watch, the Seiko Turtle. I think this is a great watch, but I can kind of tell the Willard is just more refined, and I'll be wearing the Willard more. The Seiko Turtle will be a keeper. It is my first mechanical, and I will be wearing these for important occasions, etc. Both are stunning watches. Whatever watch you get, you know, you'll be fine. Obviously, the differences are huge. Sapphire crystal, boxed, chamfered, single domed, compared to a Hardlex. Aluminum bezel, that's perfectly fine. I mean, you can get a King Turtle with aluminum bezel. The indices and dial quality are superior on the Willard. The strap, superior. The movement, superior. Finishing overall, superior. I've actually read an article from Seiko itself when they were promoting the Humera version of this. So they made a 6R35 blue version, and then they also released a much more taller, higher end 8L35 version of this watch. But the 6R35 version of this watch, for some reason, Seiko was stating that the rim of this bezel itself is Zaratsu polishing. Now, for all intensive purposes, I don't really care. I don't know why they marketed that. Maybe it's to suck people in. Oh, it's got Zaratsu. But the overall effect of this is that in sunlight, you can see that reflecting light. That's kind of what it is. It doesn't really matter if it's a Zaratsu polish. The finishing of the sides, you got high polish and then circular brushing on the top, and the brushing is done exquisitely well. Very high end brushing, you know, comparable to the Doxa Sub 300T, I will say, the brushing. Bezel itself, you can tell, easy to grip, easy to use. I have already shown you the action. Great. On the wrist, let's wear the watch now. And this is where I will state that. So I'll put it through the first loophole, put it through the second loophole, and then you get this, and you put it through the second loophole there. But yes, it's going to come out. What you do to fix it, you move that second keeper. That's it. This thing is not coming out. So that part is not going to come out. It's not going to bother you at all. Maybe for people with smaller wrists, it could. I'm not entirely sure, but on my wrist, the wearing experience of this strap is excellent. I don't feel tight at all. Great wearing experience, and I love the touch there. The Seiko brushed keeper, high. It's done extremely well. The strap exudes quality, and that is the Seiko SPB237 on the wrist. Now, one thing about this strap, let's say you do have an existing Willard that didn't come with this strap. If you do want to purchase the strap, I think the price from Seiko is 270 Australian dollars. That, in my opinion, is extremely expensive. But in my opinion, this kind of NATO style strap, the quality of the material and the weaving, it's amazing. It's solid. I love this. Probably my favorite. You can get Amiga NATO straps for $250. They're good quality as well, but this thing is on another level. Would I pay for those straps? If I was desperate, I would, but I do think the price is high if you really want one. But I mean, the wearing experience, this watch is a strap monster with the lug width of 20. A genuine strap monster. That's all I have to say. And I've just been enjoying this watch on this green Seichu strap. I love this watch a lot, right? Like, I own Grand Seikos, Doxa, Stover. I've held Glasuda Original, Rolex, etc. And right now I'm just honeymooning with this watch. I mean, the first watch that kind of I had the longest honeymoon with was the Grand Seiko SPBGM221. I mean, I still love this watch, and when you do pick this up after, you know, some time, a few days, if I don't wear it for a day or two, I pick it up. I mean, the quality, I mean, the pronounced indices, the thickness of the indices and handset, the definition is just, it's on another level. I really love it, and the Captain Willard is easily becoming my second favorite watch. I mean, I don't have favorites, but I've non-stop been wearing the Captain Willard. Yes, throughout the day I might wear some other watches in my box, but this has been my go-to. I think this here is a perfect contender to a one watch collection, or the SPB143 is famously known as the one watch collection from Seiko. This thing, I think it has that potential. People have stated that yes, the watch itself is raised because of the depth of the Seichu strap. Really, after a couple of days, you don't notice, like you won't really care about it, but nonetheless, there is a gap, but it's comfortable. The watch itself is not touching your wrist, the strap itself is. That's the only thing touching. And I think that's where the comfort lies, really, for this watch. But as I said, this is a strap monster. The dial is phenomenal. I love that grey dial. And you get this with the Umera as well, the higher end Umera with the ATEL movement. But this here for $1,300, I mean, it's great, I'll have to say. And that is my kind of initial impressions / review of the Seiko SPB237. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like or dislike and comment on the videos. Anything you want to say, let me know, because I'm very grateful for the people, and I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you've got a watch to keep you happy during any difficult times out there. And thanks for watching. It's the Sands of Time. Peace.